Hello there and welcome to the Joy News channel. Of course, it's our COVID-19 special, and prior to the COVID season, I would say that the Noguchi Memorial Institute was not as busy as it is now. As I speak, I can count about 4 vans, pickup vans, from the various sectors health directorates across the country, mostly the southern sector, I should say. We know that currently there's a contact tracing ongoing, massive testing in Ghana, making sure that we go after the COVID virus, and that's what is happening. So I am currently here at the Noguchi Memorial Institute. Currently, there's a sorting ongoing. I'll take you through the processes shortly. But I have with me a special guest. Today, she's not talking politics. Susan Edouard-Mankwa, she's here, making sure that everything is sorted out properly. Welcome to Joy News.
Thank you.
And like I said, today we are not talking politics. We are talking COVID-19.
Yes.
What exactly do you do here?
Okay, so this is the sample receipt area. Initially, we have a sample receipt post. But as you said, these are busy times and unusual times. But they still go through the process as it is. So when they first arrive, they stop at the security gate and then they fill out the sample receipt form. So, you know, the person bringing the sample, who they are bringing the sample to, the number of samples and the date and the time and the type of sample. Then when they finish with that, then they line up according to how they came in. And then they come in with their forms and their COVID samples. Then they bring the forms, so the forms are checked, the number of forms that they have. Then somebody else checks the number of samples that have been brought in. The number of samples and forms must tally. You must have, if you have 50 forms, you must have 50 samples. If one or the other is over or under, so let's say you have 50 samples, and you have 49 forms, we'll have to check each one to remove the sample that doesn't have a form.
That's a rigorous
Okay, that's a rigorous thing because sometimes they bring lots and lots and lots of it. Or if you have more forms than samples, we have to check again, one against the other, to remove those forms. It makes the process easier for the lab people. They pick a form, they know the sample is there, and they don't have to do that in the lab and waste time. So that's what we do here. We check the forms against the samples and make sure that the forms match the samples before they go into the lab. Then the samples are categorized into 2. You may have retesting samples or suspected samples. Those are put together because those are urgent and those are taken straight to the lab. The rest of the samples that are contact tracing are then sent to the cold room. And we have somebody also in the cold room who receives the sample in the cold room and then notes the samples that have come into the cold room. If they are being issued out, then they also note that they are being issued out. And it's the same with the lab. The samples that go to the lab are received and noted, and then they work on it. So they also have their sample receipt book up in the lab. So basically, that's what we do here.
It's almost 7 p.m. like I said, and already I've counted the number of pickups that have come in with these samples and the sorting. It almost looks like an electoral process ongoing, but that's aside. We'll take a look at it later. But about how many vans then are you expecting in terms of samples that will come from the various sectors or health directorates?
We have the regulars, and then we have the one-offs that come. I mean, the regulars would be the Ghana South, Ghana North, Adenta, Ayawasu, all the Ayawasus, the West, this thing, Ablekuma, all the Ablekumas, Wijagbawe, what do you call it? So all of Greater Accra, Adan West, Tema, Adan West, Adan East, all that. And then we do have samples coming in from Upper West also. Well, yesterday we had extremely large, let's say. Then we have the one-offs that come up from the Eastern region. You know, Eastern region now, they don't come on a daily basis, but they do come in, you know, from the Eastern region, from the Volta region. But Greater Accra, they on a daily basis come in large numbers.
Okay, I'll leave you to do the sorting. Of course, we'll get into the lab, then we'll know how the whole process goes. And you're expecting more, aren't you?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we are here, we are running a 24-hour. But the samples do usually by 10, 11. You get people who wander in at 12, but Usually by 10, 11, most people have arrived and we've checked them up. If they come and they have problems, they have to sort the problems up. So sometimes some of them spend a couple of hours because you have to match. And so if you came with 200 samples, you have to match them to ensure that everything is on point. But generally, 11 we are done, and most people have left.
Oh, okay. So how many shifts in all then do we run? Because you run 24 hours.
Yeah, okay. For the sample receipt, like I said,
okay,
generally by 12 midnight. But then there's somebody also in the lab that is then assigned to receive it. And then our security persons are also assigned, trained to receive samples, okay, and store them in the cold, just in case they come around 1 a.m. to But 24 hours, there's always somebody, okay, who will pick a sample up here. So this is how GASAF have presented their samples. So it's easy to count and then to check. You know, if there's a mistake, you can always see the name and.
I see labeling. What does it contain?
So these are sputum samples, and then they have the names and the numbers, their EPID numbers. So it's easy to check. But I can also show you.
Yeah, please do. We'll be glad to know.
I can also show you the way. You see that these are individually packed.
Yes.
Okay. So they've individually packed them in polythings or Ziploc bags.
That makes it difficult.
That makes it a little difficult, but the different ways, and then they have those who are coming with the swaps. But basically, these are the two different ways.
The final point.
No. Yes, not to the lab.
Okay.
These ones are going to the cold room.
Okay.
And then these ones are labeled suspected samples. So these ones will go straight to the lab.
Okay.
But these ones will go to the cold room. So clinical cases and suspected cases are sent straight to the lab.
Okay.
So otherwise, they are going to the cold room.
For later.
Yes, for later.
Okay. Hello. I'll chat with the lady quickly. Hi.
Please fix my eyes.
I should.
My eyes.
Your IC. Okay. Hello, IC. Welcome. You can have this. So, which district are you coming from?
From Ewutu Senya East.
Ewutu Senya East. So, what's currently happening?
Yeah, these are our surveillance samples we brought.
And you are now doing the sorting?
We are sorting out.
How come? How come?
We realized that we have more forms than the samples.
Okay.
So we are now cross-checking to see that what is in the case-based form correspond with the samples that we brought.
Oh, okay. And you're hoping that you'll be done in a bit. How tedious is the process?
It's a very difficult.
Very difficult. Did you get a mix-up along the line? Because usually you would have done the sorting before coming in. What happened along the line?
We did the sorting all right, but when we got here, I realized that we're still having challenges.
Okay.
So we now want to take our time and then we sort it out.
Is it a challenge you are able to surmount?
Yes.
Okay. So how long do you think this will take you for you to sort out before your samples are taken?
Roughly 30 minutes will be.
Okay. Please, may I know your name?
I'm Maxwell Adobo.
Okay. I wish you all the best. I pray that you finish that shortly. We interact with the GASAF, which is supposed to be the Wejagbawe constituency. They have the largest numbers, and earlier you saw that they had a proper sorting of their system, and we're recommending. Hello, the team is here with me. Welcome to Joy News.
Thank you.
May I know your name?
I'm Teresa.
Teresa,
Yeah.
Teresa, you're coming from the Wejagbawe
GASAF,
I should say.
yes.
So you did a proper sorting. How did you come up with the system that you put in place?
When we were starting the contact tracing, we mixed the numbers, so we find it difficult to locate the name and the EPID number too. So we came with the suggestion that we use a Ziploc.
Okay.
So we do it according to the EPID numbers, and we write the person's name, so it's easy to identify the person. It's easy to identify.
So how long does it take you, for instance? It's very simple.
It's very simple.
And I'm sure you recommend that other
yes, I
districts also
recommend
take
it to every other district that they should pack it according to ours. It makes the work more easier. Yeah.
May I know the name of your district director?
GASAF Health Directorate.
May I know his name or her name? Who leads
Dr. Abena Oko.
Okay.
And also Mr. Jones Eni.
Okay. Mostly it's always the ladies that when they lead, this will happen. And I have your members of your team
Yes,
as well. And the transporters.
Yes,
your
our
head is
driver,
here. Hello.
Mr. Paul.
Mr. Paul.
And Auguste.
We would love to interact with you, Mr. Paul. You are the driver. You bring in all the samples. May I quickly interact with you? And you know, bringing in or transporting samples like this, are you not afraid?
Not really.
You're not afraid?
Not really.
You're not afraid?
Yes. Not really. Not
But
really.
how does it feel knowing that? How many times have you transported samples here to the Noguchi Memorial Institute?
Almost every day.
Almost every day?
Every day.
How
yeah,
many
that's
trips
it.
do you have to do?
You mean for something
for
to do?
the number of times that you said every day.
Yeah,
you come.
almost every day.
So
I have
how
to
many
come
times do
to
you come?
one trip.
One trip a
Yeah,
day?
per trip a day.
Okay, but do you know how many samples you carry? How many delicate samples you carry to the Noguchi
I
Memorial?
said today I carry about 91 or so.
91. You brought about 91 samples.
91.
Okay. So do you go with them when they are taking the samples as well?
Yes, yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
I do.
Well, but when you go home, for instance, how does your family react to the fact that you've been carrying samples to the Noguchi Memorial Institute for testing?
They thought it's normal. Once the disease have come, you have nothing to do, so it's a risky job. You have to bear it, you know. Yeah.
So when you go home, for instance, what processes do you go through before, say, your family? You have a wife and children?
Yes, I have a wife and children.
How many children do you have?
2 boys, yeah.
So
Two
they know
boys.
this is the work you
Yeah, they know the way that
And
I
how
do
do
so.
you feel about it?
But they are okay with it. They know that's my job, so they are okay with it. So when I reach home, I just shower, I remove my things and shower. That is all. Yeah, I'm okay.
Mr. Paul, we wish you all the best and thank you for translating
Thank
the
you.
samples.
Thank you.
So we've just interacted with those who transport the samples here. And earlier, you've seen that Madame Susan Eduamankwa is one of the lead persons here. It would also interest you to know that it's not just ordinary technicians that are taking the samples and taking it through the proper processes. Let's go through the first desk. After the sorting, you see that there are 2 gentlemen here who are more like the electoral officers at the Noguchi Memorial Institute at this point, trying to sort out all the documents that come in. And I'll let them introduce themselves to you. You would know why I want them to introduce themselves to us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Please, your name.
My name is Daniel Kojo Ahenfo. Dr. Daniel Kojo Ahenfo.
What do you do here?
Well, you know, I am here to assist with the receipt of the samples. And I shouldn't be sitting here under normal circumstances, but sometimes if you pass through here and you see the number of facilities that are waiting to deliver samples, it's very pathetic in the sense that you could wait for 2 hours just to submit a sample. So for those people that are bringing the samples, you see, this is the end of a very stressful day for them. And so you want to help to make it as easy as possible for them to submit the samples and then go away. But you see, again, I'm also concerned about our reputation. So that's why I'm sitting here, to just make sure that things are going on well and that everybody goes home very happy. I mean, sometimes they come with all sorts of problems. Sometimes the samples don't match with the papers. Sometimes they have mixed things up. And sometimes you need to actually let them know that they are wrong. But if you just leave it to anybody to do it, they probably will get offended. So sometimes we actually find a way of telling them nicely, reprimanding them. They take them kindly, and over the period, you see that the way they package and present the samples have improved, and I'm sure they go away very happy. So no matter, and the samples come as long as after 12 midnight. Yeah, so, and especially again at this time, you know, you won't get the young ones to be sitting here doing this. So that's why we sacrifice to help with this.
So I see that you have a marker, for instance, together with the sheets and envelopes. So what you do is, maybe you take us through it.
Basically, they are checking the samples there. So what we do is we check the papers, and then we make the necessary recording at the back of the envelope. And then when they finish counting the samples, they will cross-check with us if it's correct before they put the 2 things together and then send them up, inside. And so when it goes inside, I'm sure Susan probably must have told you, when they take a sample, it has to have the accompanying papers. And because we have checked these things, again, it helps to move the work as fast as possible. Because we've checked them already, all they have to do is now to pick a paper and then take the sample and then take it through the necessary processes till when they are done. And then when they are done, they just come to the back to the paper and record the results of the test.
Looks like most of the work is done from here. Let's see your other electoral commissioner at this table. Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, and I'm Professor Colin Saholu.
And the professor sitting at the table at this point with the marker as well. How come?
Just as Dr. Ahimfo has said, we are here just to help to bring some sanity into the receipt point, because this is the point where people can come and the place will be jammed, and we need a senior person to control the place so that when you instruct everybody here, they can listen to you, they will calm down and then wait patiently for their turn. So in order to avoid the rush here and the people crossing each other, we are here to bring discipline. And also, like he said, our reputation is at stake. A lot of things are being said about the institute. So the senior people have to be here to make sure that things are done right so that we can come out of COVID-19 with our reputation intact.
What is going on? What is happening?
We're keeping on celebrating the senior officials that are here at the front line, ensuring that all the work is done properly and the sorting, and ensuring that there's sufficient work that's done. I have one more fine gentleman here with me. Good evening. You want to introduce yourself to me, sir?
Good evening. I'm Dr. Samuel Ajay, a staff of this institute and currently part of this COVID-19 work. And so as you see, we receive samples and then we also take data, count the number of samples that are received every day. And for this week, we've received about average of 2,300 samples just for this week. Previously, it was close to 4,000 samples a week. Okay. And then currently, we also receive samples by a drone. Yes.
Okay, so how many?
Drop point out there where the samples are dropped and then we pick and count. And then
are you going to get drone samples tonight so that you take me?
We got one this afternoon.
From where?
From Chibi. From Kiri.
And so for the drones, you don't get as many of them. How many drones you get for a week, for instance?
4 samples. For a week? Because it has weight limitation. It can take up to 1.7 kilos.
How tedious is the work here? Of course, sorting and sampling, 2,000 per week and all, and more, 4,000 previously. How tedious is it?
It's been very tedious, but then we all have to work to help our country, because this is a pandemic, and we are all putting in our efforts. Though we have different work that we do, but we all come together and doing our best to make sure that things move smoothly, because it's tedious. The numbers are huge. Yes, but we are managing it. Yeah.
It appears we have all the senior personnel coming out to do the work themselves. Any particular reason?
Yes, because it involves a lot of quality checks, and there's a need for the senior personnel to be involved so that we make sure that things are done appropriately, make sure that whatever information we churn out is the truth. Yes.
Indeed, thankful for your time and wish you all the best. Thank you.
What is happening? What is going on? What is happening?
So we're currently inside. First, we've left the hustle and the bustle where all the sorting is being done. We have the privilege of getting none other than Professor Ampofu himself, giving us a tour of the laboratory, and once the sorting is done, what the samples go through. Professor Ampofu, we don't take it for granted at all that you're giving us this tour of your office. How are you doing though?
Quite tired. I did both night and day today. A couple of hours rest. My wife is very upset that I spend the night away from home, but it's all good.
I would be too if I were here, though, but we thank her for allowing you to do this. But this week, how has it been? Today is a Friday, so we can safely say that you can give us a wrap of how this week has been in terms of samples that have been brought in.
Yeah. I mean, just this week we were just reflecting that had it not been for this structure, this new building, it would have been very difficult to, to process these several thousands of samples that we've received. So we're very grateful to the government of Japan, also to the foresight of the government of Ghana, for the agreement that led to this building, and of course the fitting out. It was, I think, close to $30 million invested by the government of Japan, and about $2 million by the government of Ghana to, fit it out for us to start working. And it was timely because we have this COVID-19 pandemic, to deal with. So if you look on the wall, you can see the basic description of the building. The ground floor where we are, okay, where we have the seminar room, diagnostics lab, and then we also have upstairs, we have more labs. Okay, we have the famous biosafety level 3 lab that enables us to deal with infectious pathogens, and we have various laboratories for virology, bacteriology, and then downstairs we have the immunology department.
Okay, so all this, where exactly is the COVID-19 sample being taken?
Okay, I think that's an excellent question, because that's where I was starting from. When we started the diagnosis for COVID, we were using our influenza team, which is based in the virology department, because our institute houses the National Influenza Center. So as it is a respiratory disease, the influenza team, started the initial work in the virology department. But as the samples started coming in, we increased the size of the teams, and we have spread out across all the 3 departments, both downstairs and upstairs. And so the entire building now is being used for the COVID-19 work. That's why I remarked straight in the beginning that this building has really lived up to its purpose for working with infectious agents.
I'm sure you'll be monitoring the controversy. You've had cause to even respond to some of the issues that have been raised in terms of the capacity, the testing, and the processes as to whether we are massaging figures, whether we are churning out the right figures and all that. I would first get into your mind, when you hear stuff like that from the public, knowing what you do here, what happens? What goes
I get very upset. I get very, very upset, because the work we do is dedication and hard work, and a lot of experience built up over many years. I've been working in this University of Ghana for half of my life, most of my life. I was a student here, and then I've grown to become a professor here. So it is a big deal to me when people question the work that we do without understanding the facts. So we're very happy that you're here. You've seen the sample delivery. You've seen the sample receipt process. You've seen the painstaking effort to ensure that the samples are received properly, because that is the beginning of the testing process. Okay, so you heard the average number of samples we received this week is about 2,300. Yesterday we actually received over 3,000 samples, and all this is the start of the thing. So if we had 2,000 approximately per day, today is Friday, that's 10,000 samples. So how can somebody doubt that we have processed 68,000 samples within this period? I think when we did an estimate earlier on yesterday, we were close to 86,000, for both KCCR and for Noguchi. So you will see for yourself the process. I think it's going to be educative for you to see that it's not the number of tests per day, but it's our capacity to process the samples as they come in. So depending on the volume of work and depending on the number of people we have at post, we can go up to 3,000 samples, we can do as low as 1,000 samples. So it depends on the way the work stream flows. But we have, at the peak we had over 150 people working in 3 groups, so working 24/7. Sample reception would close around 11 p.m. One person will still be dedicated, but then as you will see in the labs that we're going, we had teams working all night and all day.
Well, can you blame the public sometimes when they raise these concerns? I know it gets you upset, but you can't blame them too much also that the concern is that the process that you're using, for instance, you talked about the pooling system that you've had to use. We've heard from the Nigeria's head of disease control, for instance, Dr. Ezekiel, exactly, raising concerns about the process that Ghana is using.
Okay. About the process. He explained that they have adopted a different approach. It wasn't about concerns. I think
he raised issues about the limitations that Ghana's
limitations of the method. Therefore, they have chosen a different approach. You will see when we go to the lab. That's the reason I jumped in. Is that you see, sometimes the phrase that is adopted is not appropriate to the circumstances. What he said was that I think people were saying that in Ghana they are testing thousands of samples. Why aren't you doing the same? Then he said, we have taken a different approach because of the limitations. The approach we have adopted here has nothing to do with another country's situation. We looked at our capacity, we looked at our resources, and we looked at our techniques, which we have been using over the past couple of years for avian influenza, and we've modified that to use for COVID. So it's not about the pooling, it's about the ability to adopt the appropriate strategy for the public health surveillance that is required. When it comes to normal surveillance, we don't pool the samples. We do them individually because in the time frame that we're operating, it's enough to do the samples one by one. In this particular contact tracing, to try and identify the positive individual and isolate the person, we adopted the strategy that we thought would work fastest in order to identify somebody who was positive. And when we go up to the lab, I'll show you the protocols that we have adopted to ensure that the system that we have taken up is sensitive enough. Sensitive meaning we are able to detect a true positive, and also it is specific enough, meaning that we are able to rule out, identify and determine a true negative. Yeah.
So this is a system that, given the opportunity, Noguchi will stand by in terms of adopting such a process, just for the education of the public.
Of course. I mean, we would not do something that we feel that's not appropriate. That's it. And of course, we will share our scientific reports. We will publish this. It will be peer-reviewed by other scientists. And I think the way that we have worked will stand the test of time.
But I hope these don't discourage you too much, do they?
Not exactly, but I think that as we explain what we do, people should appreciate the work that we do and not ascribe. You see, when you hear the word massage, it's very offensive because as scientists, you know, integrity is a major value that we hold dearly. And so what will we get by changing figures? We produce the data, and the data is shared with appropriate authorities. This is the Ghana Health Service, the Ministry of Health, and they use it to inform the intervention. So why would they do anything that would not enable them to deal more effectively with the response, which is really key to, you know, the public health of everybody in Ghana and also our neighbors. So I think that we will do our best in the circumstances, and we would rather hope that we would be appreciated instead of being vilified by some people, I don't know, for whatever purposes they seem to take delight in criticizing negatively the work that we do. But we are encouraged, and we will continue our work.